Hello and welcome back to the show. So I'm really excited for my guest today, Mike Milligan. So if you guys don't know who Mike is, he is a certified financial planner, and his role is to actually help entrepreneurs, real estate agents, people who are owning their own business build a financial plan that is one of a kind and unique to you, your lifestyle, and your goals. He is the founder of One of a Kind Financial, and he is here to actually share with us some actionable advice, some tips on how we can go ahead and prioritize our financial plan because as we all know, as entrepreneurs, we're going out there grinding every single day, but we're not necessarily taking as much time to build a financial plan that is going to be sound. So, Mike, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you join us here today.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me. And man, you're exactly right. It's what we do at One Oak Financial every day is we help entrepreneurs and small business owners actually see that their financial plan is the number one thing that they should be focused on. And building a one of a kind financial plan for their one of a kind life is our mission every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really unique what you guys are doing and really building around that idea of having a one of a kind financial plan. So before we get into all of that, I'd love for you to have an opportunity to share a little bit more about your background. How did you get into this line of business and really what took you to where you are here today?
Yeah, I mean, I've shared my story so many times, but it started in a little small town in North Carolina. I was just an average kid, I guess. And my family had some hardships, not unlike others, where we had some health issues that took my grandfather out. And when he was no longer around, my grandmother had to step up, and she had to innovate through desperation. They were not a family that showed a lot of income over their life. He owned a construction company, so he took a lot of money in cash. So it wasn't a lot of social security build up for them. They definitely didn't have a 401k, not a lot of other assets in place because they valued family so much. But here he is at the end of his life. He passed away and left my grandmother with this innovation that she had to do. And so she did what she knew best. She started cooking, and she made collard sandwiches, collards between two pieces of fried cornbread, and she'd wrap them up and take them to lunch sites. And in those lunch sites, people would give her $5 for a sandwich at the time that you could get a Big Mac for $1 and two cheeseburgers at Hardee's for $1. Right? People were buying from her out of love. They loved her. They loved my grandfather. And I was 11-year-old kid just going along for the ride. But what I witnessed firsthand was somebody who was fighting to keep things afloat for the family. And I got to meet some people during my teenage years that were interesting. There was one guy who was a branch manager of the bank where my grandmother opened an account, and he was wearing a suit and tie. And I thought, man, that's really cool. The only people I knew that were wearing suit ties back then were preacher men, and I did not want to be a preacher man. So I was like, yeah, I'll try this banking thing. And so I asked how to do it. So I would go to college. And while at college, I fall in love with investing and estate planning and found out that what a certified financial planner was. I didn't even know what that was when I went to college. I mean, I couldn't even spell it, to be honest with you. But now here I am out of college, and I go to work for a bank, you know, nothing too special. But after about 13 years in banking and in the insurance world, I just realized that there's more than what corporate America wants you to do. There's more small business. There's innovation that comes when people solve problems. They open businesses to solve problems for individuals. Realtors make the American dream come true. Financial planners help solidify it, and then the other small business owners around the country, they're the backbones of the towns that you serve, right? They're the ones when disaster happens that opens up their doors to their neighbors, and they're the ones when somebody falls down on luck, just like my grandmother, like my family when they fell down on their luck. It was the small businesses that helped her, right? It wasn't some big corporation who came in and swooped today. The big corporation still wanted her to pay her phone bill and her electric bill. They still wanted her to pay her mortgage. but the small businesses are the ones that helped. And so I learned that early on. So for the last 13 years, we've been building our little own small business. It's an 8-figure business. We're growing. We're moving around the country. We've got offices from Norfolk to Honolulu, Hawaii. I live in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I mean, we could talk about why I do that later if you want to, but I see the small business mind. There's a mindset that comes with being a small business owner, and I love talking to and through small business owners because you're the ones that have the ability to make the impact in the world, and it starts in your community. And I'm consistently impressed by the talent, right? That people and the unsung heroes and communities that are just doing the work that needs to be done every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really unique the background that you came from, right? Because you saw from a young age the power of owning a small business with your grandmother and also the small businesses that actually came in and helped her as well. So now that you own a small business and it's growing to I think a medium to larger size business, arguably at this
Yeah.
point. But we all start at small business, but most importantly, you're actually serving other small businesses as well. So what are some of the things I would say like that you maybe took from those early experiences when you saw your grandmother going out there running her own business, kind of putting the bootstraps on to what you're seeing now and, how you can apply that to owning your business as well.
So she had a product, right? And it was a collared sandwich. I mean, like if you really want to break it down, it was food, it was substance, it was most people wouldn't really call it a great food, right? I liked it.
Mhm.
It was very much a Southern staple. Um, but I mean, she was selling an experience, right? I mean, because people at that time who wanted fast food, they wanted home cooked fast food. I mean, fast food was just this was the 1980s, right? So fast food was not as common as it is now. Very few players in that space, but it was up and coming, and people had stopped, packing lunches every day, and so she saw an opportunity to put something from her kitchen in front of people, and the interesting part about that is that, like I mentioned earlier, she wasn't really selling a sandwich as much as she was selling love, and I find it every day, right? Is you look at the big businesses out there. You think about like what Uber sells, right? Uber is not a taxi company, right? They're just a bunch of cars moving people around that's convenient. You look at like what Amazon is. He started out to be the biggest bookseller in the world, and now he's the biggest retailer in the world. And the biggest bank or the biggest financial services company in the world is really not a bank anymore, like PayPal. If you think about that, and if you think about where people lay their heads at night when they're traveling, it's not as much hotels or Marriott or Hilton's anymore. It's Airbnb. And so people have taken this whole concept, and I learned this from my grandmother, right? They've taken this concept of they have a product to sell, but they put a spin on it that makes it more than what the product is. The collar sandwich was more, right? It was more than lunch. It was a story, right? Like this came from Lib Calder. That was her name, Lib. This came from Lib, right? And have you heard what happened to Walter, her husband? And like it got people talking in the town about like her situation and just kept going until eventually she was in the local neighborhood festivals selling thousands and thousands of sandwiches a weekend, right? She became a well-known legend cook in the area, small town. She was the cook of the South, right, at that time.
Yeah.
And it was she sold love and she sold a story, and that's what I learned from her. We at One Oak Financial, we do investment work. We do stocks and bonds and mutual funds and ETFs, and we help people with the defensive side of financial planning, like life insurance and disability insurance, and we create guaranteed retirement income sources through annuities. We put long-term care insurance in place. We put a will and trust in place. But listen, guys, those anybody can do that. Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, all those folks can do that. They're not going to probably do it as well as we do, because one of the things we do is we listen to you first. And this is what I learned from my grandmother. The person on the other end that's purchasing it has a story. Listen to their story. And that's what we do is we listen to their story, right? We build one of a kind financial plans No two people are getting the same exact thing, because what I've learned is that on the other side is somebody who has goals and aspirations that are unique to them. They want to spend time with grandparents. They want to pass on a family business to the next generation, right? They want to, they want to travel. They want to go touch all seven continents. They want to spend, half their year in England and half their year in Boston, right? Or wherever. And the interesting part about is that we all only have one life. I mean, not to go into the spiritual world or the spiritual realm or religion, right? But like, we have one life that we know about on this earth. Nobody has been able to prove that we come back and we do this thing multiple times in the same form that we did before. So we have one life. And gosh darn it, if you only have one life, don't you need a plan that's just made for you? And that's what we look to do, is build one of a kind financial plans and meet you where you are to help take you to where you want to go. And that's what my grandmother taught me about business. She only had a third grade education. She used to always say common sense is not very common. Uh, boy, but she had a PhD in common sense. And I learned so much from her. And I still use her principles in leading our company every day.
Yeah, I think it's so unique, right? What you guys are doing of building one of a kind financial plans, even though like, just mentioned it's pretty much it should be common sense that everybody's going to have different goals. So everybody's financial plan should be at least slightly different, right? To tailor it towards their goals as well, especially if you're a small business owner
Yeah.
and you have a different income source, you have different cadence of income, if you will. So when you're going out there, you're meeting with other business owners. What are some of the things that you're seeing as far as maybe issues that they're running into, maybe some of the bigger problems that you see, even if the business might seem successful on the front end, if they don't have a certified or they don't have a financial plan on the back end that's solid, they could be a lot of problems.
Well, the first thing that I run into is typically people have tax problems.
Yeah.
They don't understand the tax code and how the tax code can actually be beneficial to a small business owner, whether that's like, using your primary home for residence, or your primary residence as a place to host meetings, because
Mhm.
there's a little known tax code out there called the Augusta rule. The Augusta rule allows you to have 14 events at your home every year, right? And those events, those can be corporate meetings, like where you bring a couple staff in, client engagement meetings. But the cost of having people in your home is a tax free event for yourself, right? So you can take money that's going to be taxed, pay for your residents to host the events, and then you could do that you can do it 14 times a year, and that's tax-free income. So that's one thing that small business owners miss, whether you're a real estate agent like a 1099, or an insurance broker, or running a small business. Augusta rule is something that is so overlooked, right? For client entertainment or corporate events, or company events. Number two is you miss this whole idea of Section 179 and bonus depreciation. And not to go into over details, but it's a car, right? It's just a car. Like, how do you get from meeting to meeting and event to event? Well, you're going to drive a car, and Section 179 allows you to take that car at almost a full write off as an expense. And it's just something else that's missed. And then you've got like in West Texas, they have the depletion if you own mineral rights, and you could take a huge tax hit there. You've got the home office deduction. You've got, there's just so many things. There's creating opportunities for others. Taxes are like the biggest thing, because people miss deductions. They miss ways to take taxable income and turn it into tax-free income within their business. And if you're taking the risk, you need to learn how to do that. The second thing with taxes they miss is like just filing deadlines. The IRS is like a perpetual, they're perpetually dressed up as and going around trick or treating, right? All right. The IRS, and by the way, if your porch light is turned off, they're still coming to your door. And if you play within the rules, you still have to pay tax. But if you mess up on a filing deadline, well, then there's a penalty on top of it. So there's tricks and treats, but it's only in the IRS side. And so you have to know how to play within the rules there. And then the biggest thing I see that's happened in the small business space, and please forgive me for being cynical if you're a small business owner, is you're taking advice from an employee of a company, right? Like you literally, like, if you work with somebody at a bank or a financial planner who is a W-2 employee at an institution, they're giving you the advice that their managers are telling them to give you, who the board of directors telling the managers what to do, and the board of directors getting their advice from the shareholders, right? And so you're about the client, the small business owner. If you're getting advice from a publicly traded company or a private company that has employees, you're literally taking advice from somebody who's signing the back of their paycheck, not signing the front of the paycheck like you do. And that is just like, they don't understand you. And I mean, I don't, there are some good people that work at financial institutions. I'm not saying that they're not. What I'm saying is that they don't have the independent thinking to really be able to help you through the tough situations. And you're working with somebody who's given a one size fits all approach to whoever comes in the door. And that's you as a small business owner versus somebody else who may be 55 years old and is collecting a W-2 check by punching a clock. And so, if you're an entrepreneur or business owner, if you monitor your taxes, take advantage of tax codes, work with a professional that not only understands those provisions, but also takes them for themselves, right? And then you work with somebody who's signing the front of the checks, who understands what it's like to potentially miss a payroll, right? Who understands what it's like to manage cash flow. Cash flow's king, right? If you're working with somebody like that, then you're working with somebody who's truly in a partner and in alignment with you versus somebody just giving one size fits all cookie cutter piecemeal advice.
Yeah, and that's something I don't think a lot of people understand, right? When they're going into these big institutions, they think, JP Morgan Chase, these big banking financial institutions, they should have the best advice, right? They're so huge, they have so much experience, but they don't think about the person who's actually giving them the advice, the fact that they don't have the same problems that you do as an entrepreneur, right? They have their own 401ks, they have their own, company-backed financial retirement plans that we don't as entrepreneurs have. So that's a big difference between the two.
When they leave at 5 o'clock every day, right? Then no matter what they did that day, from 9 to 5, 8 to 5, they're still going to get paid at the end of the week, right? And they're not worried about you, whether or not you're meeting payroll, or they don't care about you, right? And I don't mean to say they don't care about you as a person, but like their livelihood is literally not dependent on your success or not. Matter of fact, most of them charge a percent fee for managing investments, and they're charging that percent fee whether or not the value of your account goes up or goes down. It doesn't really matter, right? And they're just going to say asset allocation, diversification, everything's okay. And I mean, I don't mean that's an overgeneralization, but that's what they do. Um, I'm telling you guys, if you're in any way a small business owner, there are financial strategies that will actually benefit you that are not available at these big institutions. And nothing against the big institutions, but you got to remember they're following the Big Mac, the McDonald's model, right? McDonald's, the cheeseburger that's sold most in America, right? Big Mac, two all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. Well, you walk in JP Morgan, it's checking account, savings account, loan, right? Investments in these three funds, and maybe, a referral to a mortgage person. But they don't give you access to alternate investing, premium financing, leverage life insurance. They don't give you access to disability income insurance and, custom trust asset building, right? The creation of your LLC. They tell you, like, if it's outside of their scope of responsibility, they say, listen, we don't do this. So go spend money with that expensive attorney or that expensive accountant, or go see that insurance advisor who's just going to charge you another fee. But listen, a financial professional should be able to consolidate into one or two people that you work with that can help you with any situation, right? And let them bring in somebody from the outside to their team to help you. You don't need to go out and search for all the answers yourself because you are busy, right? You are busy showing people houses, right? Navigating through through loan closing. And I mean, ask me how I know the life of a realtor. I'm married to one, right? I'm married to an 11-time Circle of Excellence winner, right? Who crushes real estate, right? In her way. And but I see like how hard she works Saturday nights negotiating deals, Sundays, right? Taking 11 o'clock phone calls. And it's not right that you have to work those hours. But like in that world, like as an entrepreneur, you work when when the deals are cooking, and you don't get to go flick a switch that says off on. You're always on, right? And that's the so that guy's our business. Like One Oak Financial is always on because we always understand what's there. I intentionally created our business like from Virginia all the way to Hawaii because I can't create more weeks in the year or really more hours in the day, boy. But that 6 hour time difference, it allows us to take calls from 8 in the morning Eastern to 2 o'clock in the morning Eastern. And it's the same thing, right? If you're in Hawaii and you need somebody, we always normally have somebody to answer calls when people are awake. And so we build a business to meet people exactly where they are.
Yeah, that's an important thing I think for entrepreneurs to consider because of the uniqueness of everybody's business, right?
Yeah.
Again, we talk a little bit about, incomes, different types of income. You can't just turn your business on or off, right? It's very different from a W-2 job where you know exactly where you're going to get paid, how often you're going to get paid, and then how long you work, right? So you can plan that out. So for entrepreneurs, right, when you sit down with them, what are some of the biggest questions that you ask them in order for you to create a financial plan that is actually unique and will serve them long term?
Well, we always ask our first question is, why is money important to you? There's um there's no better answer. I mean, there's no question that I found in my 30 plus years from the academic in owning the business. So, academic world, working for somebody and owning the business. I've never found a question that gets better answers. And like if you're not prepared to answer that, I mean, I'll ask the next question, which is why can't you answer that? Right. If you don't know why money is important to you, what it does, I can ask it in a couple different ways. Like in your business, what problems do you solve? Like what makes you unique? There's a lot of questions that comes off of the why is money important to you question, but you have to be able to articulate. Like if an entrepreneur has to articulate what makes them special because you have to stand out in a crowded field. Many entrepreneurs are working in the same space as like their next door neighbor, especially like realtors, right? I mean, there's so many realtors in this world, and realtors, real estate agents who are trying to find the next listing or the next buyer to help, and it's hard. It's really hard work to find that, but like what makes you different? I mean, even within a large firm, you could be, you're, and that's the thing people don't really understand about real estate agents. Like the consumer doesn't understand is you could have this person that's working for a large national firm, but it's like, and there could be 300 people at that firm, but those are really like 300 small business owners, right? They're not
Mhm.
there's no magic salary coming from the top if you don't close deals. It's 300 small businesses within the same firm, and what you hope is that being with that firm gives you some name recognition, some naming rights, right? To build trust quicker. But listen, man, people, small business owners, realtors, accountants who are independent, insurance folks, commercial real estate folks, insurance brokers, I mean, they're hustling. And the thing about that hustle is I mean, just it's real every day. And for those who don't have a pipeline full, right, of ready buyers or ready sellers, the time frame between that next deal, that next paycheck, and now can be really, really stressful. Small business owners live a stress filled life. When you get to the point like I am, right? I'm at a point where if we don't have a new client come in the door for, I don't know, 2 months, I think we'll be okay. Right. 3 months, I think we'll be fine. But it took a long time to get there. It took 14 years to get there. And I we definitely welcome the chance to speak to new people. But one of our things that we have now is like, uh, we want to hear like your story. We want to hear why money's important. We want to hear your why. What problem are you solving in your small business? We want to know that. We want to get to know you beyond just what the numbers or the quantitative side is. Because if we're really going to build a one of kind financial plan, we got to know who we're building it for. And that's one of the things that makes us truly unique. We have such there's so many great product offerings now that it's just insane what's out there, and so many things that translate industries now. Like there's a lot of things in the financial space that happen with insurance, that happen with real estate, right? There's things that happen with investments that happen with real estate. I mean, there's a lot of overlap in ways that we can explain concepts, I mean, you've heard of like leveraging, right? Leveraging. I mean, that's what people do when they buy a house. You can leverage life insurance to get more death benefit and ultimately more tax-free income. You can leverage stock portfolios, right? You can create option strategies. You can create protected downside hedge strategies. So many of these things that are out there that nobody in there, I mean, I do this every day. I do it 12, 14 hours a day some days. And there's things that I don't even understand in this business. Right. And so by listening, first of all, though, by understanding why money's important to you, we get to understand like what angles we can go down to really give you the chance to live a one of a kind life from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing for people to consider is the fact that it's the end goal, right? It's not hitting certain numbers. And we talk about this like in business, running your business as well. It's not necessarily about going in there and trying to hit certain numbers every single year, every single month. A lot of agents, they have that, mentality if they have to hit certain production numbers in order to feel like they've hit their goals. But really, at the end of the day, it's what matters to you, right? Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to hit these numbers, right? And if you're not understanding, if you're not clear on why that is, then you can hit as high of numbers as possible. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day because you're not building it for your life, right? So we have to think of things not from like, forward or almost think of things backwards, like moving backwards. What do you want? And then what do we do to actually get there?
Yeah. I mean, we'll spend a lot of time like this has nothing to do with finances, but it has everything to do with finances. We will take 2 weeks out of our year to go on a trip. And we know that we're going to leave like January 12th and come back January 26th. And so we got the beginning and the end date of that. We know that we would like to go, for instance, and go see Machu Picchu or Rainbow Mountain in South America, or you want to go over to England, right? And you'll spend meticulous times planning like what you're going to do every minute of that trip. And you go over and you have a great time, but then that trip ends. And what do you have left? You have memories. Well, most people won't spend that much time with their money. And like one of the things we ask is after we ask why is money important to you, is we ask, okay, if you could have memories in your life at the end, imagine you're at the deathbed at the end of your life. What do you want to be remembered for? What do you want your kids? What do you want your friends? What do you want your community to say about you? Almost like write your eulogy
Yeah.
while you're alive. Because if you write your eulogy now, you can actually make it come true. And I mean, there's some people who write some weird things down, right? That they want to be known for. And you're thinking, well, that's unique. And like when they really write it down, they're like, and you start seeing them angling to get there, you're like, okay, I see why that's important to you. And so we make sure you have the resources to put that in place and go. But I mean, people this mind is a great thing, right? And when you allow people to open up, whether it's to solve problems through a small business or me inspiring people to live the unique, crazy way that they want to live, when you see people reaching goals and milestones, whether it's accumulating money or knocking things off of a bucket list, right? Or a, a vision board. You start really seeing, you really start seeing life played out in front of you. And so many of us are just passively living life. I for one, don't want to passively live life. I want to aggressively live every day, right? I want to have good every day. I want to have some good food. And if I'm having a drink, I want to have a good drink. I want to have a deep conversation with somebody. I want to laugh with my wife. I want to tell my kids that I love them every day. And I hope that, a third of the year, a fourth of the year, whatever, my feet are touching places that I've never touched before and doing things that I never have done before. And that's one of the things that entrepreneurism, being a small business owner, that's what it brings to me, is that ability to dream aloud, right? And then bring my people along with me. Kobe, do you remember, do you have an iPhone? Or are you an
Yeah, yeah,
Android? Are you an
yeah.
iPhone or
iPhone.
an Android? Good, good. Most people won't remember this, but like Steve Jobs left Apple. Have you ever read that? Have you ever read that story before?
I haven't read it, but I'm aware that he did leave
Yeah.
Apple.
So he left because he was seeking something more in life. He's like, just sitting here engineering, building. This is not what excites me. So he left, and then he came back to Apple. And when he came back, this was like in 96 or 97. They wanted to do an ad campaign that showed the prodigal son had returned home. And quite honestly, Dell, I mean, do you even know who Dell Computers is? It,
Yeah, yeah, I know Dell Computers.
yeah,
I'm familiar with
they're,
them.
they're down in Texas somewhere,
Yeah.
right? But Dell and Compaq, Hewlett Packard, IBM, uh, these companies were kicking Apple's butt in computer innovation at that time when he came back. And the people at Apple at the time said, let's announce that you're back. And he's like, and let's just announce that we're going to kick everybody's butt. And he said, no, I don't want to do that. And so he worked with the marketing team, and they created this ad campaign called Think Differently. And this was it was in 1997, because it was 10 years before the first iPod and then the first iPhone came out. And he just said, for those who, for the square pegs trying to fit the round hole, for those who think outside the box. And it's this beautiful, beautiful poem about a minute long of just saying that thinking differently, people who think differently, we're going to innovate for you. We're going to think different. We're not going to give you the same compact Dell. We're not going to give you the same system that everybody else gives you. We're going to something that revolutionized and changed your life. That was almost 30 years ago. 10 years ago, they had created the first iPhone. And now look, where is Compact? Where is Dell, right? Where is all of these other computer systems? They're kind of still around, but they literally put out a plan for 30 years. And like, that's what small business owners do, right? Is if you think about it, right? You could think about the transaction in front of you, but if you really think long term about how you can change the industry, those are the ones that legacies are going to be made. Those are the people who give me the weird eulogy things. And I'm thinking, man, there's no way you're going to be able to do that. And then they start doing it. And I'm like, holy cow, they're actually going to do this stuff. Right. And those are the people, by the way, who get remembered for the longest times. So,
Yeah, that's such a good story, I think, of just thinking differently, right? Because a lot of times, especially I think as real estate agents, right, you don't want to get stuck in this this thought of, I'm selling houses, right? I'm a real estate
right.
agent. That's really not what you're doing, right? You're trying to create the experience like we talked about earlier in the show for your clients, right? You're not selling a house. You're actually more or less selling you as the individual and the experience you can create for your clients as well. So I think it's so important for small business owners to think outside of the box, to be able to create a plan, not just on the front end, but also on the back end, right? To make sure that they are protected. And that is something that I don't know if is that something that you've seen as well, that people are maybe lacking a little bit. They're thinking so forward that they're not thinking enough about their protection, their foundation on the back end.
Well, I mean, like a lot of people like have big dreams and big goals, and they just don't know the action steps to get there. That's why you have to surround your people, or
Hmm.
be surrounded by people who are going to make sure that you checking things off. That's like we as advisors. like when you tell us something that's that big, we're not going to let you stray from attacking that big goal. We're going to make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed on taxes, right? That you have, that you're using every benefit in the tax code that's there to pay the least amount of taxes you can legally pay. Because if you pay the least amount of legally taxes, now you got more money to go dream with,
Yep.
right? And then on the other side, because we're also small business owners, we're going to push you to be radically different. Whereas an employee at a bank is going to be like, no, play it safe. We're going to push you to be radically different. And by pushing you and keeping you on track in your financials by doing quarterly or semi-annual, annual reviews with your money and with your plan, we're going to put you in your zone of genius. And that zone of genius is doing what only you can do. And we're going to do what only we can do. And together, that's how we go and be one oak. That's how we be one of a kind.
Yep, absolutely, man. And just to kind of wrap up today's episode, I know you teased it a little bit in the beginning of the show, talking about where you guys currently reside in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So why don't you share with the audience who may or may not have heard about some of these benefits here, why you guys decided to do that, and why some other small business owners are deciding to do that as well.
I mean, it's growing, right? Every year, more and more people are moving to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has something called Act 60. It used to be called Act 20 and Act 22, but Act 60 allows an investor or a small business owner to relocate. You have to be a 1099 employee, right? Or have a business that you can still do while you're on the island back on the mainland. And so we moved down here really for a couple of reasons. My wife, the realtor, is also, she's half Puerto Rican, and she wants to fully embrace in the culture. She feels like she's missed it over her first almost 40 years. I hope she doesn't listen to this when I say almost 40, because that's a sticky subject for her. But she wants to embrace in the island life. And listen, we love the island life. If you've never visited Puerto Rico, you should come give it a go. If you want to be with a group of entrepreneurs, we have a cruise every year called the San Juan Social Club Cruise. You can reach out to me and I'll make sure that you know when that is and how that works. But this culture down here is vibrant, but that's only part of the reason we're here. We're here for tax savings. As a resident of Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico is still the United States of America. It's a territory, but Puerto Rico's sourced income, when you are a resident, meaning you spend more time here than you do anywhere else, when you have a closer connection here, meaning that you give your money here, you go to church, you go to the gym, cars registered here, like you have a closer connection to the island here. Uh, Revenue that comes from your on mainland here to Puerto Rico is free of federal tax and state tax. And here you pay somewhere between a 0 and a 4% tax rate. So if you want to know what that benefit is, simply look at your tax return from last year, divide your taxes paid by your taxable income. And if you're 22, 24, 32, 35, 37% tax, uh, and you've got the ability, right? I mean, this is a strategy that it takes a lot of coordination to actually make happen. But like, if you got the ability to go spend 6 months and a day on a beautiful island in the Caribbean, right, where you get to see amazing sunsets and there's sand and the food is absolutely amazing, right? Now there's some hardships living here too. The power grid has some issues. Last week a water main burst and we had to drink bottled water and use cistern water. But listen, there's some things that happen that are a little off the grid, but like Puerto Rico offers an ability to accumulate wealth greater because you're eliminating the biggest expense you have in your life. Now, if you don't, like, that's for us, right? That's for us and for thousands of other entrepreneurs who have moved down here, because we see them. Like, we were walking down the street last night having dinner, and somebody said, "Hey, Mike," right? And like, it's another entrepreneur that's down here. And it was two couples having dinner, and we sat and talked for 15, 20 minutes, right? Because the entrepreneur community is strong here. For creative folks, my wife's a realtor, right? She's here. She has a coaching program for realtors back in the United States. She's still selling real estate back in Virginia. Um, but like, this community is vibrant. But listen, even if the last 3-minute rant about Puerto Rico, if you're like, I cannot do that, it doesn't mean you don't have tax it doesn't mean you don't need to get in the game when it comes to tax savings, because we live in the past week, right? We found somebody in Texas a $430,000 tax write off. We've used, with our small business owners that we work with, we use the Augusta rule. Like the Augusta rule last year saved one person $165,000 of taxable income, just one person. Maybe your income's not that great, your area is not that big, so maybe it'll only save you ten or $20,000 of income. But who wouldn't want to have $10 or $20,000 of tax-free income, right? I mean, who doesn't want to drive around the new car, the Section 179, right? It doesn't mean it has to be a 2026 G wagon, right? It could be a Ford Expedition or a Ford, a Dodge Durango, right? But who wouldn't want to get that payment fully tax deductible on their bill? Taxes, guys, us living in Puerto Rico is us believing wholeheartedly that taxes are the biggest expense we're going to pay, and we're trying to get them to as close to zero as possible. But if it's not for you, there's other tax strategies that are available.
Yep, absolutely, and that's a great tip. I know a lot of not a lot of entrepreneurs, especially real estate agents, actually, who have moved to Puerto Rico specifically for that as well. So it's good to hear that you're able to share that with the audience here
Yeah.
today and some different things that they could be doing. But Mike, man, I just want to say thank you for taking the time today, sharing your advice, sharing your story with us, and really helping a lot of small business owners, entrepreneurs, real estate agents specifically understand the possibilities of creating a financial plan. So, for those who are listening to this right now, what are some of the best ways for people to reach out directly to you to get connected further and then just learn a little bit more about how they can work together with you in the future?
I mean, if you want to reach out and speak to me, you can go to mikemilligan.com. Mikemilligan.com. It's my personal site where I do coaching, educating, and planning. Um, if we do financial work together, we're going to do it through One Oak Financial. That's the number one oakfinancial.com. You could also get me there. If you want to read my most recent book, it's called The One of a Kind Financial Plan. The One of a Kind Financial Plan. It's on Amazon or anywhere else you buy books. And if you want to hear more tax strategy, I do have a podcast called Ideas by Mike. You could search for that on Apple, and we have a lot of guests on there. I'm sitting in the opposite role of this than I am in this one, where yeah, I do talk some, but I'm asking probing questions about tax strategy and investments and retirement income for entrepreneurs going deeper. So, I mean, Kobe, you did a great job today. Uh, so, I'd love anybody who's listening to this, anybody that you come in contact with, we'd love to talk to them and see if we could save them 10, 20, 50, 100, $200,000 in taxes. Because that, if you had that in your pocket, think of the impact you could really make on your journey to live a one of a kind life.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, thanks so much. We'll make sure to leave the links in the description, the show notes down below, so that people can find your show, can find out how they can connect with you. But other than that, man, just before we let you go, is there any last pieces of advice, any last nuggets you want to leave with the audience before we let you sign off here today?
Um, Whatever you do in business, make sure you're doing it personally. So, like if you're a real estate agent, own real estate. If you're a small business and you're trying to solve a problem, make sure you are fully invested in what you are offering to solve problems. Because the greatest conviction you can have is somebody who's doing what you're offering to help other people with. And so, and most of all, above anything else, be unique, because this world only has one of you. And if you try to be somebody else other than yourself, you're robbing this world of the talents that you can bring to solve problems. So I tell you to just be one of a kind.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate you. Appreciate you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next show. Take care.